listen to the will of those who will not speak. And if the tools are not willing, they will be.
From the very start, Cronos, the new dawn, is dripping with atmosphere. I'd expect nothing less from the Polish masters of horror at Bloober Team. You navigate a post-apocalyptic version of 1980s communist Poland, and I love it. The world building is top-notch. The cars, the Polish graffitis, the large panel concrete buildings and the apartments inside.
Yeah, this is a Polish fucking vibe, man.
I was born a decade after the fall of communism in Poland, but I've still experienced some relics of that time period. My grandpa's apartment looks just like those in-game, with those flimsy white doors and pine paneling lining the walls. If you're from one of the European post-Soviet countries, this setting will resonate with you on some level. The game is a little slow on the uptake, but the overwhelming atmosphere and the creepy ambience are well more than enough to get you through to the first enemy encounters. And once the brakes are off, the action, the set pieces, the story all get more intense and don't slow down. So, the combat. I've seen a lot of people comparing this game to Resident Evil or Dead Space because flesh monsters, goofy spacesuits and stomping. I haven't played any of these except a very brief session of RE7 in VR, so I can tell you with fresh eyes if Cronos actually stands on its own. And it does. The guns are punchy, there are enough enemy types to always keep you on your toes, and there's a nice sense of progression with new guns and tools sprinkled in throughout the game. It seems that this is one of the games that tends to spark polarizing opinions. Lots of people complain about the difficulty, the lack of ammo, the annoying enemies, but all I can really say to them is skill issue. Not once have I been left completely defenseless in any of the combat scenarios. There's a lot of useful loot to be found. Explore. This is not a run and gun rip and tear game. Be a little strategic. Prioritize your targets. Burn the corpses. You've got explosive barrels, flammable canisters, a flamethrower, grenades, and an arsenal of guns. How do you run out of things to kill stuff? You are either completely careless and unattentive or just daft. I'll give you this. I can see the initial weapon sway being annoying, especially on controller. I myself whiffed a few shots because of it, and it doesn't feel great. That's why it was the first thing I upgraded on most of my weapons. Mouse and keyboard helps too, and it's honestly better than a controller here. The game always kept encounters fresh. Enemy variety is front-loaded. There aren't many foe types introduced in the second half of the game, but group compositions are always different, always something to watch out for. One time you're facing a couple of normal orphans. Another time it's a singular merged big enemy. Next, it's a big enemy with a swarm of wall-climbing, acid-spitting human centipedes with a bunch of corpses lying on the floor waiting to be absorbed. So you've got to watch the ranged enemies and also prevent the big guy from merging. Oh, and the merging. A major marketing point for the game, but I gotta say, it's really not that important in game. It sometimes comes into play, but it's not that hard to prevent enemies from merging. Even better, I've often used this to my advantage. When an enemy starts to merge, it stops attacking and approaches the nearest dead body. I've often waited for that to happen, ran up to the merging fellow, and boom! 2 corpses with 1 flamethrower charge. The concept of merging enemies is very cool, but it definitely hasn't reached its full potential here. Then there's the bosses. A good amount, I'd say. And the design of one of them in particular is top-notch. You'll know which one I'm talking about. They do reuse some of them, but only once or twice, and they always have a little spin when they appear again, so it's not too bad. Despite many voices, I wouldn't call this game very hard. I only died thrice. Once because of my own buffoonery, I provoked a skippable fight, and the last 2 were the final boss, which is the only time this game annoyed me. He has some really fucking poorly designed moves. So much so that I had to check a guide to see how to avoid them. But how's the horror? I'd say it's very good. Not constantly in the state of shitting my pants in alien isolation good, but good. The ambience and the world design do the heavy lifting. There's always this unnerving feeling of hostility and being unwelcome in the back of your mind. There are a few good scares that got me, most of them involving doors.
Ah! Kurwa! Kurwa! Kurwa mać, no.
Fuck the doors, man. At a point I became paranoid about approaching any rectangle with a doorknob. But if you want good loot and enough cores to upgrade your laughably small inventory, you gotta check every nook and cranny. I am somewhat of a completionist with FOMO, so I learned it the hard way. After a major boss fight and around 30 minutes of gameplay, I realized I progress locked myself out of a room with some goodies. So I reloaded, did that whole section again, plus the room, just to get a double barrel shotgun. And it fucking sucked. The gun was awful. I put it away and never used that shit ass weapon again. Horror comes in different flavors, and in classic Bloober fashion, there's also the psychological aspect. Your main character goes back in time and collects human essences, their souls you could say. And these essences make their way into your mind. The more people you collect, the more insane you become. A depressed Polish person living rent-free inside your mind is less than ideal. At one point I went into the basement of a sculptor, Antoni Surma, and took his essence from one of my fallen predecessors. As I turned around, a statue he'd been working on disappeared. It lunged at me as I was leaving the basement. Other works inside his house changed from classical sculptures into monoliths of deformed flesh carved from stone.
Kurwa.
I thought this sculpture from his basement would now haunt me till the end of the game. It's a really good and unnerving section. And then there's the story, which I see why people find convoluted. Because it is. It asks a lot of questions but doesn't give you the answers. It's vague, unclear and muddy. You work for the collective, you extract human souls for ascension, and that supposedly helps them, somehow. But what is the collective? What is the ascension? Where did the change come from? Did you, the collective, the travelers, bring it from the future? Who or what even are the travelers? What even are you? Some questions get answered, but most of them don't. All you get are implications, hints or clues, and your own theories. This game does a damn good job at telling a compelling narrative. Convoluted, but compelling. It drew me in and kept me curious and guessing till the end. There are a lot of stories to be witnessed in this game. The stories of your predecessors and the people, the essences they've captured. The story of your own self-discovery and how your extraction targets intertwine with it and with each other. I can already see people making hour-long essays breaking down the lore, the story, and the different theories. I have my own theory about the collective and the change, which I'm going to share whether you like it or not. Spoilers in 3, 2, 1. The change and the collective are one and the same. The change malforms biomass and brings it together. The travelers call the smaller, independent or individual cases of the change orphans, as in abandoned and separated from the parental entity, in this case the collective. In the later stages of the game, we can also see the change exhibit intelligent behavior when enough of it grows in the same place, in the Abbey. It has a voice, it speaks to you, and nearby travelogues of your predecessors note that the orphans in this area also behave differently, as if controlled by something. Right here, we have a living example of the change evolving from a simple hunger and mindless orphans to an intelligent being capable of reason. It now has the means to better defend itself and spread more efficiently, but it is still driven by that incessant hunger. If you take a look at the iconography of the Church of the Last Days, you'll notice that their cross looks very similar to the one travelers have etched onto their suits. And isn't the collective driven by the same motive as the change? Hunger. Infinite hunger. We see that the change is capable of evolving reason. It's not too far-fetched to say that the more biomass it accumulated, the more intelligent it would become, and it would search for more ways and places to satisfy that hunger, eventually developing technology. And after running out of space, the change would still find a way. Why not go back in time before the apocalypse when there was a lot to consume? Its hunger no longer satiated by the present, it has now started to consume the past. The change and the collective are one and the same. Alright, now that my little rant is over, we can focus on more important stuff. Where is the Polish dub? This is one of the most aggressively Polish games made in the last couple years, and every Pole you meet speaks perfect English. Not even a hint of an accent. This should be criminal. I can excuse the collective or the travelers not speaking Polish, they can speak English, but here we are in Kraków, in a Polish city, with Polish posters, Polish graffiti, Polish signs. The world design is unapologetically Polish. Not a single compromise, not a single sign translated to English. But the voices? English. Why Bloober? And I know some of these Polish names are a little difficult to pronounce, but there have been cases where someone's name was pronounced entirely differently in the span of the same conversation. Like, one person will correctly say Dr. Zibert, and the next time you hear it, it's Dr. Zybert? Come on, you can do better than that. Overall, I'm glad to have played this game. Combat is a joy, the story draws you in and keeps you engaged, and the world is begging to be discovered. It's good to see more Polish dev teams taking on bigger and more ambitious projects and taking risks with brand new IPs. This is a major step in the right direction for Bloober Team. Keep it up. Just the Polish voiceovers, please. Also, commendable pricing. Less than 50 bucks? Very cool. I pre-ordered the game like 3 hours before the launch, so I also got their previous original big title, The Medium, for free. That's a really cool pre-order bonus if I've ever seen one. And yeah, that's all I gotta say for this one. Do zobaczenia. Oh, and unrelated, but if you've played the game, I have a question for you. In the hospital, during a dive, you can go into the surgery wing where you can find the second chalice for the chapel, right? So inside the last room in the corridor where the big fight happens, on a small table, there is a red rectangle, an envelope or paper or some other shit. And you can interact with it, but only once. And the main character then says, what is that? So my question is, what the fuck is that? Seriously, it's been stuck in my mind for a while now. If you've played the game and have any theories on what the fuck this red rectangle might be, please do let me know. Down in the comments.
Człowiek chce nagrywać i mu kurwa ciężarówki jeżdżą w tle. Zajebiście.